Happy Hump Day. It's Wednesday, it's a slow news day, and it's a day where I really have just taken my time with things. It's like 4:30 in the afternoon right now, and I never record videos this late unless it's an immediate game review, but there are some things to talk about, and things that I actually think are pretty important, but could be seen as not that important if you're just looking at it at face value. It's more of like, okay, why is that kind of important kind of thing? But to me, this is something that I think warrants its own video topic because I actually kind of want to get some thoughts out about this specific thing. And what I'm talking about here is the Vancouver Canucks and their lines. Now, normally, the lines get shuffled up regardless, and people are used to seeing the Vancouver Canucks roll with different lines throughout the year. Heck, even throughout the games, the lines change up. It's very common with this Travis Green-coached Vancouver Canucks squad to see somebody post the starting lineups on Twitter and have that starting lineups completely change after like 20 minutes in the game. It happens a lot, but I think just the overall change of these lines in general is a pretty important thing to note, especially when you're talking about some of the players that we'll be talking about today. The Vancouver Canucks have swapped Brock Boeser and Adam Gaudette on their power play. They're actually on different units, because that's usually how the power play works, but just from this Jeff Patterson tweet, we can gather that the Vancouver Canucks have Adam Gaudette on the first power play unit with Elias Pettersson, with Quinn Hughes, with Miller, and Bo. And Brock Boeser is on that second power play unit with the Jake Virtanens, with the Myers, with the Roussells, with the Edlers, and whoever is left on that power play. Is it Pearson? I think it might be Pearson. Forgive me for forgetting, but I really only do focus on the first power play whenever it's out there on the ice. But regardless, we have a swappage of power play right-handed shots here, and that's actually not all. If you take a look at the lines that went down with the Canucks practice in Sunrise, Florida, they moved Brock Boeser down to the third line with Adam Gaudette and Antoine Roussel. Jake Virtanen got moved up to the first line. Pearson, Bo, and Louis stays the same, and the fourth line is, well, it's a shuffle of Schaller and McEwen with Beagle and Tyler Mott. Of course, no Furland, of course, no Sutter. But that's okay, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how Brock Boeser has been demoted to the third line in 5-on-5 and to the second power play unit, at least just based off of this one practice. The practices usually dictate how the games are going to go, because they wouldn't want to practice in a lineup that they don't plan to actually use in a game, because when you practice, you kind of build up chemistry. So that's kind of the idea that we're going to go off of here. Brock Boeser has been kind of demoted. So, after seeing these lines, some people were trying to talk about Brock Boeser in the context of whether or not he's in a quote-unquote doghouse. And that's not kind of what I want to talk about here today. That's not the angle I want to take. I want to focus mostly on the other guys that are being put up in this opportunity for better ice time, pretty much. Jake Virtanen is a guy who has really gotten his head on straight and who's had a better tenure throughout the past few weeks than we've seen ever during his time as a Vancouver Canuck. He's been so effective and so good that having him on the first line with Pettersson and Miller, this is a chance, man. This is a chance for Virtanen to break out. He was doing really well playing with Gaudette and playing with Roussel. So giving him a shot to play with a JT Miller who can win those board battles, get the pucks down low, and exhibit a really strong work ethic throughout, as well as the genuinely skilled Elias Pettersson, the elite talent, quote-unquote franchise talent. It's something that I think could be really, really good for Jake Virtanen if this is the opportunity that allows him to become a true player. Then that actually sounds amazing. Now, obviously, this is not something that I see is going to be permanent. I know Boeser will probably get his way back onto the Lotto line, and they will eventually be reunited. It happened earlier in the year, too. But For now, Jake Virtanen is in a position where he's been playing great, and he's being given a great opportunity here. As for Adam Gaudette, let's talk about that for a little bit. Hey, Gaudette's going to be playing with Boeser in the top 9 on 5-on-5. Say what you want about Boeser, but he's still a pretty solid player, and he's still a really skilled player when it comes to getting offense done. Now, throughout the past few games, it hasn't necessarily been there, but we know that the talent does exist with Boeser, and changing it up where instead of playing with Petey and Miller, he's playing with Gaudette and Roussel, that gives him the opportunity to change things up and potentially get things going too. It's a nice little sign that Adam Gaudette will be able to actually have a winger who has a different skill set than a Jake Virtanen. I'd be really interested to see how Gaudette fares with a Boeser on his wing, and it's actually kind of poetic, isn't it? These two guys are drafted out of the 2015 NHL entry draft, one in the first round and one in the 5th round. Both of these guys were players that Canucks fans had absolutely no idea who they were upon hearing their names in the draft board. Seriously, I remember when Boeser was drafted, all my friends in the group call were freaking out because we didn't take Konechny or we didn't take Merkley and we took some random Boeser guy instead. Gaudette was a little bit more forgivable because he was in the 5th round. Nobody really cared about the 5th round picks. But Gaudette has really shown off that he does belong on this team, and he's fought his way through thick and thin, through the preseason, and through Utica too, to actually solidify himself as a lock on this team. He's been really good, and seeing him play with Boeser is going to be something that I'm really looking forward to. Now let's talk about the power play too, because when Gaudette was moved up onto the first power play, my immediate thought was, yes. Why was it yes though? Well, it was yes because to me, Adam Gaudette has been so much more effective on the power play than Brock Boeser in the past few games that I think this kind of shakeup is really, really necessary. You see me talk about it every single time we do these game review videos. Power Play 1 doesn't freaking shoot. Power Play 1 isn't freaking effective. They're effective when Quinn Hughes gets pucks on the net, and he only does that maybe once every 2 or 3 power plays. The Power Play 1 up until this point has been so stale and so stagnant and so ineffective in my opinion that it really does feel good to have a guy who's willing to shoot the puck like Gaudette on that spot. You've seen it against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Teams were closing down on Elias Pettersson every single time he touched the puck. When Boeser would get the puck either down low or on the half boards, he would try to force these passes to Petey that wouldn't work. They'd get blocked off, and it would go back the other way or get cleared. Power Play 1 was just a nice little passing fest, and it wouldn't really get pucks towards the net in the same way that Power Play 2 could. Power Play 2 was in a position where everybody out there, Virtanen, Myers, Roussel, Gaudette especially, these guys would just get it and be like, yeah, okay, shoot it, go, get a rebound or something. Pucks on net on the rush or whatever. Pass it back to the point, a nice one-timer on net. This is what Power Play 2 would do. John Garrett called them out on the broadcast too. Power Play 2 has a shoot-first mentality. Power Play 1 was in a position where a lot of their guys were really skilled. And yeah, I know they're really skilled. But because of that, they have kind of this standard in their head as to how they want to get these goals. They don't want to just shove pucks on net and hope for a rebound. Power Play 1, for the most part, is always trying to make that last pass to really fool everybody out there and get an easy tap-in goal. Well, hey, when you're one of the best power plays in the league on paper, that's not going to work because teams are going to know that that's what you want to do. This passing going on by Power Play 1 hasn't been effective recently, and changing up just one player has the potential to actually change the whole dynamic of the power play, because you know, just from watching these Canucks games, Gaudette is going to shoot. Boeser, he's not the same rookie Boeser. We talked about the risk before, we talked about the points before. Sure, he's getting points, but can you really say that Brock Boeser today is as effective and as dangerous as Brock Boeser was 2 seasons ago? I don't think so. So, having Boeser onto a power play that does have a shoot-first mentality, and having Gaudette moved onto the power play that tries to finesse and pass its way into the net every time, I think it's a really interesting move, and we're gonna see that in action tomorrow, assuming, things don't really change. If they don't change, then, this video actually makes sense, but if they actually go back to the normal setup for tomorrow's game, then I'm dumb, and you can disregard this video. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video, Social Natural Cyanine, and bye.